What if the ultimate symbols of power and divine right were not just made of gold, but were dripping with mountains of precious stones? What if the most influential women of their age wore fortunes on their heads, around their necks, and even belted around their waists? Prepare to glimpse the unimaginable splendor of medieval royalty, specifically between the 5th and 15th centuries, through the most stunning jewels ever to grace a queen. Number 1. The Sacred Crown of St. Stephen, worn by Elisabeth of Luxembourg. The Sacred Crown of St. Stephen, a regalia piece with an almost mystical aura, was worn by numerous Hungarian monarchs, including formidable queens like Elisabeth of Luxembourg in the early 15th century. This was not merely a piece of secular jewelry. It was considered a holy relic in itself, the very embodiment of the Hungarian state and its divine right to rule. Its possession was paramount for legitimacy, and its splendor as worn by a queen was a spectacle of power and a link to a sacred legacy stretching back centuries. Imagine a crown composed of two distinct parts, seemingly fused by time and purpose. The lower circlet, known as the corona graeca, or Greek crown, is of Byzantine origin, dating back to the late 11th century. This base is a shimmering band of pure high-carat gold, hammered and shaped into a masterpiece of cloisonné enamel work. This technique involved meticulously soldering thin gold wires onto a gold base, creating tiny compartments that were then filled with vividly colored powdered glass before being fired in a kiln. The result was a series of miniature, jewel-toned paintings, protected by a hard, glassy surface. On this circlet, 8 distinct enamel images depict Christ Pantocrator, archangels, and saints like Saints George and Demetrius, their figures rendered in exquisite detail against backgrounds of deep blue and emerald green, each one bordered by delicate golden filigree. Above this Greek circlet, a different style emerges: the corona latina, or Latin crown, added around the 12th century. This consists of 2 intersecting gold bands arcing upwards to meet at the very top. These bands are adorned with 16 images of the apostles, also in cloisonné enamel, but with a slightly different stylistic touch, featuring the apostles gazing upwards, perhaps towards a central divine vision. Where these bands intersect a tilted cross itself, a significant historical curiosity rises from the crown. The sheer volume of gemstones adorning this crown is staggering. It is absolutely saturated with precious stones, each one contributing to its overwhelming brilliance. There are large cabochon-cut sapphires, their deep blue hues mirroring the heavens, some of them of significant size, perhaps acquired through trade routes, stretching across Asia. Rubies, often dark and fiery, are set in profusion, their intense crimson speaking of royal blood and passion. Emeralds, with their vibrant, living green, are strategically placed to catch the light, adding a rich, verdant contrast. These stones are not cut with the precision of modern gems. They are instead smoothly polished and rounded, allowing their natural color and light-catching properties to glow with an almost internal fire. And threaded throughout the crown's golden framework, in between the enamel plaques and the larger gemstones, are numerous pearls. These natural pearls, likely harvested from ancient beds or even European rivers, are not uniform. They vary in size and shape, their creamy, iridescent surfaces reflecting light softly, adding a gentle luminosity to the crown's otherwise dazzling brilliance. Each pearl would have been carefully selected and secured, creating patterns of opulence around the hallowed images. For Elisabeth of Luxembourg, who reigned as Queen of Hungary in the early 15th century, the sacred crown of St. Stephen was more than an accessory. It was the very symbol of her claim to the throne. She was the daughter of the Holy Roman Emperor Sigismund, and upon his death she became a reigning queen, fiercely determined to secure the crown for her infant son, Ladislaus Posthumus. Her struggle to maintain possession of this crown, even going so far as to have it stolen from its resting place at Visegrad Castle, highlights its critical importance. When Elisabeth wore this crown, perhaps for her own coronation or for state ceremonies, the weight of the gold and the multitude of jewels would have been considerable, a tangible burden of her immense responsibility. As she moved, the light would have danced across the enamel plaques and the hundreds of gemstones, creating a halo of color and brilliance around her head. The apostles and Christ in enamel would have seemed to gaze out, lending a divine sanction to her presence. Each sapphire and ruby would have pulsed with light. Each pearl would have glowed softly. The crown, being a national treasure, was guarded with extreme vigilance. Its history is filled with political intrigue, thefts, and repossessions, demonstrating its profound value beyond mere monetary worth. It was considered so vital that it dictated the very legitimacy of a monarch. Elisabeth of Luxembourg's determined efforts to keep it within her line underscore its power. Though the crown left Hungary at times due to various conflicts, it always returned revered and protected. Today, the sacred crown of St. Stephen is proudly displayed in the Hungarian Parliament Building in Budapest, a breathtaking relic of medieval artistry and a potent reminder of the queens, like Elisabeth of Luxembourg, who carried its immense weight and sacred splendor. Number 2. The Great Brooch of Margaret of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. Margaret I, who unified the crowns of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden in the late 14th and early 15th centuries, was arguably the most powerful woman of her age. As regent and de facto ruler, her court was a hub of political maneuvering and diplomatic exchanges, and her personal adornments reflected her unmatched authority and immense wealth. While specific name pieces from her extensive collection are rare to find precisely documented, the concept of a great brooch was a cornerstone of royal medieval adornment, and Margaret, with her unparalleled status, would have undoubtedly possessed one of truly monumental scale and splendor. Imagine a brooch not merely as a decorative pin, but as a central piece of royal regalia, perhaps 6 to 8 inches across, a substantial disc or multi-lobe form, crafted from solid, gleaming gold. This gold would have been of the highest purity, its surface polished to a mirror-like finish reflecting the light with a deep, rich glow. The artisans, working with techniques honed over centuries, would have employed intricate filigree, where delicate threads of gold were twisted and soldered into elaborate swirling patterns, creating a lace-like effect that would have added texture and depth to the piece. Granulation, tiny sears of gold applied to the surface, might have added further ornamentation, catching the light in 1,000 tiny points. The true opulence of Margaret's great brooch would have resided in its incredible density of gemstones. Picture a field of precious stones set so closely together that the underlying gold was barely visible. Deep red rubies, possibly sourced from distant lands like Ceylon or even Afghanistan, would have pulsed with an inner fire, their deep crimson hues symbolizing power and passion. Interspersed among these fiery gems would have been sapphires of the deepest, most velvety blue, some almost indigo, others a brighter cornflower, perhaps from mines in Kashmir or Sri Lanka. These sapphires, often cabochon, cut to maximize their natural color and internal glow, would have offered a striking contrast to the rubies. Emeralds, with their vibrant living green, would have added a verdant lushness to the composition. These could have come from ancient Roman sources, or perhaps more contemporary. European finds their natural imperfections and internal landscapes adding to their unique charm. And completing this kaleidoscope of color would have been hundreds, if not thousands, of natural pearls. These pearls, varying slightly in size and shape, harvested from northern seas or exotic waters, would have provided a soft, creamy iridescence, their gentle luster, a counterpoint to the dazzling brilliance of the faceted stones. They might have been set in clusters, forming borders, or even creating delicate patterns across the brooch's surface. The design of such a brooch could have incorporated heraldic symbols, reflecting Margaret's vast domains, the 3 crowns of Sweden, the lion and heart of Denmark, the Norwegian lion. These symbols might have been rendered in raised goldwork, possibly enameled with vibrant colors using techniques like champlave, where enamel was fired into recessed areas of the metal, or cloisonné, creating vivid, permanent designs. The back of the brooch, though rarely seen, would have been a testament to its solid craftsmanship, perhaps engraved with an inscription or a royal cipher. When Margaret I pinned this colossal brooch to her rich velvet or silk gowns, perhaps at her throat, or more likely at her breast, it would have been an undeniable statement. It was not merely an accessory. It was an extension of her formidable presence, a visible declaration of her authority over 3 kingdoms. As she moved through the grand halls of her palaces, or presided over the Kalmar Union meetings, the countless jewels on her great brooch would have caught and refracted the light, sending dazzling flashes across the room. Every glint of gold, every shimmer of pearl, every fiery sparkle of a ruby would have proclaimed her status as the undisputed ruler of the Nordic world. The weight of such a piece would have been substantial, pressing against her garments, a tangible reminder of the immense wealth she commanded and the burdens of her regency. Chroniclers often spoke of the immense personal fortunes and lavish displays of medieval monarchs, and Margaret I, with her unparalleled power and diplomatic prowess, would have spared no expense in projecting an image of unassailable regality. While a specific great brooch of Margaret I, perfectly intact, does not exist today as a named, identifiable object, the historical record indicates the scale of royal jewelry collections during her time. Such pieces were often disassembled in later centuries, due to financial necessity, political upheaval, or changing fashions. The gold might have been melted down, and the precious stones, being the most valuable components, would have been removed and reset into new creations for subsequent generations of royalty. However, the legacy of queens like Margaret I and the sheer breathtaking opulence of the jewels they undoubtedly owned remains a powerful testament to the artistry and wealth of the medieval age. Her great brooch, though perhaps dispersed, lives on as a concept of unparalleled royal splendor. Number 3. The Golden Rose of Joanna I of Naples. The Golden Rose was a singular and immensely prestigious papal gift bestowed by the Pope upon individuals or institutions for their exceptional devotion or remarkable service to the Church. For Joanna I, Queen of Naples, in the 14th century, a monarch whose reign was a tumultuous saga of political intrigue, alliances and papal struggles, receiving a golden rose from Pope Clement VI in 1348 was a profound acknowledgement of her standing, and a jewel of immense spiritual imitating and a jewel of immense spiritual imitating. This was not a piece for daily wear, but a ceremonial object, a unique display of papal favor, and the ultimate statement of royal piety and power. Imagine a piece of artistry unlike any other, crafted from pure burnished gold. The Golden Rose was exactly that. A realistic depiction of a rose branch, complete with thorns, leaves, and multiple blossoms, all meticulously rendered in precious metal. The central dominant rose bloom would have been a masterpiece of the goldsmith's art. Its petals, formed from thin, delicate sheets of gold, layered and shaped to create the naturalistic folds of a blooming flower. Each petal would have caught the light, gleaming with a deep, warm luster. Around this main blossom, smaller roses and buds would have emerged from the golden stem, suggesting growth and renewal. The leaves of the rose branch would have been equally detailed, perhaps textured with fine veins, giving them a lifelike quality. Even the thorns, tiny and sharp, would have been individually crafted from gold. The entire structure would have been substantial, possibly standing a foot or more in height, rooted in a richly decorated golden base or vase, allowing it to stand proudly as a display piece. The true splendor of the Golden Rose lay not only in its exquisite goldwork, but in the lavish application of precious stones. While historical descriptions vary, these papal roses were invariably adorned with a multitude of gems, transforming the golden flora into a glittering garden. Picture hundreds of tiny brilliant gemstones, each one carefully set into the very heart of the golden blossoms, along the delicate veins of the leaves, and even at the tips of the thorns. Rubies, with their fiery crimson, would have represented divine love and martyrdom. Sapphires in shades from deep blue to vibrant azure would have evoked heaven and truth. Emeralds, with their living green, would have symbolized spiritual growth and renewal. Beyond these traditional precious stones, some golden roses were known to incorporate a small phial often set within the central rose containing balsam mixed with musk, which would have emitted a delicate sweet fragrance, adding another sensory dimension to its sacred presence. This fragrant balm, blessed by the Pope, would have further emphasized the rose's spiritual significance, symbolizing the rose of Sharon and the flower of Jesse, and biblical tradition, and the sweet odor of Christ's resurrection. For Joanna I, receiving this golden rose was a profound event. Her reign in Naples was marked by intense political struggles, including accusations of murder, alliances with various popes, and conflicts with other branches of the Anjou dynasty. Pope Clement VI, who had granted her absolution for the murder of her first husband, Andrew of Hungary, bestowed this rose upon her, perhaps in recognition of her piety, her loyalty to the Avignon papacy, or as a diplomatic gesture to solidify their alliance. When the golden rose arrived, it would have been presented with great ceremony, a visible sign of the highest spiritual approval from the supreme authority of the Church. When displayed in her royal chapels or during grand ceremonies, the golden rose of Joanna I would have commanded immediate attention. Its gleaming gold would have caught the light, and the myriad of tiny gemstones would have sparkled with an almost otherworldly brilliance. The delicate fragrance from its hidden phial would have wafted through the air, creating an atmosphere of sanctity and reverence. It was a testament to her unique position, not only as a powerful queen, but as a favored daughter of the Church. It was a tangible link between her temporal power and divine sanction. The fate of Joanna I's golden rose, like many precious objects from the medieval period, is not entirely clear. Papal golden roses were rarely kept by the recipients for long periods. They were often melted down during times of financial need, or dismantled to reuse their precious components in other contexts, or simply lost to history during periods of conflict. The practice of presenting golden roses continued for centuries, each one a unique work of art, but only a handful of medieval examples survive today, often in church treasuries. The memory of Joanna I's golden rose, however, stands as a testament to the intersection of immense wealth, artistic mastery, spiritual authority, and the complex political life of one of medieval Europe's most intriguing queens. It remains a powerful example of how jewels, even ceremonial ones, were deeply entwined with the lives and legacies of medieval monarchs. Number 4. The royal pendant of Philippa of Hano. Philippa of Hano, Queen Consort of England and wife of King Edward III in the 14th century, was renowned for her piety, her political influence, and her significant personal wealth. She was a patron of the arts and a bringer of new fashions to the English court, and her extensive collection of jewels was well documented in royal inventories. Among her many splendid adornments, a truly magnificent royal pendant would have been a centerpiece, a focal point of her attire, a tangible declaration of her status and the prosperity of the English crown. Picture a pendant of substantial size, perhaps 4 to 6 inches in length, designed to be worn on a heavy gold chain or a jeweled collar resting prominently on the queen's chest. This was not a delicate trinket. It was a weighty piece, crafted from the finest, purest gold, its surface highly polished to achieve a deep, resonant luster. The goldwork itself would have been a testament to the skill of master goldsmiths, perhaps featuring intricate openwork designs where the metal was pierced and cut into delicate patterns, creating a lace-like effect. Or perhaps it would have fogueted the art of repousse, where designs were hammered out from the reverse side, creating a three-dimensional, sculptural quality on the front. True majesty of Philippa's royal pendant would have been its breathtaking array of precious stones. Imagine a large, central gem, possibly a magnificent sapphire of a deep velvety blue, the size of a pigeon's egg, commanding immediate attention. Sapphires were highly prized in the medieval period for their color, which evoked the heavens and symbolized truth and loyalty. This central sapphire might have been cabochon, cut its rounded surface, reflecting the light with a serene internal glow. Surrounding this dominant gem would have been a constellation of other precious stones. Fiery rubies, their intense crimson speaking of royal power and passion, would have been set in profusion, perhaps in contrasting clusters or arranged in symmetrical patterns. Around the central sapphire, these rubies, possibly sourced from distant lands like Sri Lanka or Mumbai, would have added a vibrant, dynamic energy to the piece. Emeralds with their lush, vibrant green would have provided a verdant contrast, their presence signifying growth and prosperity. Spinels, often mistaken for rubies in medieval times, might have added further depths of red and pink, and interspersed among these brilliant colored stones, adding a soft, luminous quality, would have been a multitude of natural pearls. These pearls, each unique in its iridescent luster and organic shape, would have been carefully selected and meticulously set, perhaps forming delicate borders around each gem or creating intricate patterns across the pendant surface. The combination of brilliant, faceted or cabochon gemstones and lustrous pearls would have created a dazzling interplay of light and color, ensuring the pendant sparkled with every movement. The design of the pendant could have incorporated symbolic elements relevant to the English crown or Philippa's Hano heritage, perhaps the English lion, the French fleur-de-lis, reflecting Edward III's claim to the French throne, or the personal emblems of the Queen and King, all rendered in raised gold work, or even enameled in vibrant colors. The back of the pendant, though unseen, would have been as meticulously finished as the front, perhaps engraved with an inscription commemorating its creation or its royal owner. When Philippa of Hano wore this royal pendant, perhaps for a state banquet, a parliamentary opening, or a grand court ceremony, it would have been an undeniable statement of her unparalleled status. Resting against the rich silks or velvets of her gown, the pendant would have drawn all eyes. The light from torches or candles or the bright sun through a castle window would have caught its myriad jewels, sending dazzling reflections across the hall. Courtiers, foreign ambassadors, and visiting dignitaries would have witnessed a tangible display of royal wealth and power personified by the Queen herself. This pendant was not merely a decorative item. It was part of the Queen's projection of authority and prestige. It would have conveyed an immediate message of wealth, influence, and the divine right to rule. Philippa was known for her generosity and her ability to influence her powerful husband. And her magnificent jewels were part of her overall image as a strong, wealthy, and regal consort. While no single royal pendant of Philippa of Hano survives today as an identifiable pickup, the inventories of her possessions, which speak of jewels of immense value, suggest the existence of such pieces. Like many medieval royal jewels, items of such value were often disassembled over time. The precious stones, being the most enduring part, would have been carefully removed and reset into new fashionable designs for subsequent generations of royalty, or sold to raise funds during times of war or financial strain. The gold might have been melted down for coinage or new adornments, yet the concept of such a magnificent jewel, a royal pendant, worthy of one of England's most celebrated queens, remains a powerful testament to the breathtaking opulence of medieval royal courts. Number 5. The Crown of Blanch of Castile. Blanch of Castile, Queen Consort of France in the early 13th century, and mother of the sainted Louis IX, was a formidable and influential figure. She was known for her intelligence, piety, and exceptional regency during her son's minority. As a queen, her public appearances and courtly life were steeped in the visual language of power, and central to this was her coronation crown, a piece of regalia that would have visually affirmed her divine right and royal authority. While no specific named crown of Blanch of Castile survives, French royal crowns of this period were incredibly rich, and hers would have been a quintessential example of high medieval artistry and unparalleled opulence. Imagine a crown crafted from pure radiant gold, its surface glowing with a deep, warm luster that spoke of immense value. This was not a simple circlet, but a complex three-dimensional masterpiece. It would have taken the form of a broad, substantial band, intricately worked with technique perfected by medieval goldsmiths. Delicate filigree, where fine gold wires were twisted into intricate patterns, might have adorned its surface, creating a lace-like texture. Perhaps there were also areas of exquisite enamel work where powdered glass was fired into recessed sections of the gold, creating vividly colored miniature scenes or symbolic motifs protected by a hard glacis. Rising from this golden circlet would have been a series of stylized fleurons or lilies, perhaps 8 in number, symbolizing the French monarchy. These were not merely flat cutouts. They would have been sculpted forms, perhaps featuring tiny pearls embedded within their petals, or intricate gold work suggesting a blooming flower. Connecting these upward-reaching elements might have been delicate arches, arcing gracefully to meet at the very top, supporting a small golden orb surmounted by a cross. The ultimate symbol of Christian monarchy. True spectacle of Blanche's crown would have been its astonishing array of gemstones. Picture it absolutely encrusted with precious stones, set so closely together that the underlying gold was almost entirely obscured by a shimmering mosaic of color and light. There would have been a profusion of deep red rubies, their fiery intensity symbolizing courage and royal blood, perhaps sourced from distant lands through trade routes, or even ancient Roman caches. Alongside these would have been sapphires of the deepest, most serene blue. Some large and prominent, their color evoking the heavens and divine favor. Emeralds with their vibrant living green would have added a verdant contrast, their presence signifying growth and renewal. These gemstones would have been primarily cabochon, cut in the 13th century, meaning they were smoothly rounded and highly polished, allowing their natural color and internal fire to shine through with a soft, captivating glow, rather than the sharp brilliance of later faceted cuts. And interspersed among all these magnificent colored stones would have been countless natural pearls, hundreds upon hundreds of them. These pearls, varying slightly in size and shape with their soft, creamy iridescence, would have provided a luminous counterpoint to the vibrant sparkle of the harder gems. They would have been carefully drilled and strung or set into tiny gold bezels, creating intricate patterns across the crown's expansive surface. When Blanche of Castile wore this crown, perhaps during her coronation as Queen of France in 1200 or at major state ceremonies during her regency, the sheer weight of the gold and the multitude of jewels would have been significant. It would have pressed down upon her head, a physical manifestation of the immense responsibility she carried. As she moved through the grand halls of the royal palace, or processed through the streets of Paris, the crown would have literally pulsed with light, its myriad gems catching and refracting every available beam. The sight of her, crowned in such splendor, would have been a powerful affirmation of her authority and the glory of the French kingdom. Blanche's reign was marked by her staunch defense of her son's rights against rebellious barons and her strong alliance with the Church. Her public image, adorned with such magnificent regalia, reinforced her divinely sanctioned power and unshakable resolve. The crown was not just an ornament, it was a potent symbol conveying legitimacy and reinforcing the hierarchy of medieval society. Like most medieval royal crowns, it is highly probable that the specific coronation crown worn by Blanch of Castile no longer exists in its original form. Royal jewels were often seen as liquid assets capable of being pawned, melted down for coinage during times of war or financial need, or dismantled to reuse their precious components. The gold might have been melted down and refashioned, and the valuable gemstones removed and reset into newer, more fashionable pieces for succeeding generations of French royalty. However, the legacy of queens like Blanche and the sheer scale of the jewels they commanded remains a powerful testament to the breathtaking opulence of medieval European courts and the profound significance sports. Number 6. The Imperial Cross of Empress Gizela. Empress Gizela, consort to Holy Roman Emperor Conrad II in the early 11th century, was a powerful and influential figure in the Ottonian and Salian dynasties. Her personal treasures and the imperial regalia associated with her were of immense value in craftsmanship. Among the most significant types of objects owned by empresses of this era were processional crosses, often designed as reliquaries, which were not merely devotional items but also spectacular displays of imperial wealth and religious authority. The Imperial Cross of Empress Gizela, though its exact form is debated among art historians, would have been a masterpiece of Ottonian artistry, a shimmering confluence of precious metals, rare gemstones, and sacred relics. Imagine a cross of grand proportions, perhaps 3 to 4 feet in height, crafted from pure gleaming gold. This was not a simple flat cross. It would have been thick and substantial, its arms tapering slightly, giving it a powerful, imposing presence. The entire surface of the cross, front and back, would have been a canvas for intricate goldwork. Techniques like repousse might have been used, where designs were hammered out from the reverse side, creating three-dimensional figures or patterns on the front, perhaps depicting Christ or evangelist symbols. Alternatively, fine filigree work, delicate gold wires twisted and soldered into elaborate swirling motifs would have covered its surfaces, creating a rich textural effect. The true opulence of the Imperial Cross would have resided in its extraordinary array of precious gemstones set in profusion across its golden body. Picture large cabochon-cut jewels, their smoothly rounded surfaces glowing with an internal fire, their deep colors pulsating under any light. There would have been significant numbers of rich red rubies, their fiery intensity symbolizing the passion of Christ and the blood of martyrs. Sapphires of the deepest, most serene blue, some almost indigo, would have evoked the heavens and divine truth. Emeralds, with their vibrant living green, would have symbolized renewal and eternal life, their presence adding a verdant contrast to the red and blue. Beyond these primary gems, the cross would have been adorned with a multitude of other precious stones, perhaps amethysts with their regal purple, garnets with their deep crimson, or even rare medieval diamonds, though these would have been small and uncut, valued more for their hardness than their brilliance. Interspersed among all these dazzling colored stones would have been countless natural pearls, hundreds upon hundreds of them. These pearls, each unique in its creamy iridescence and organic shape, would have provided a soft, luminous quality, reflecting light softly and creating patterns of gentle glow across the cross. They might have been set in clusters, forming borders around larger gems or outlining sacred figures. Crucially, this cross would have been a reliquary containing sacred fragments, or holy dust perhaps from the true cross itself or from the relics of saints. These relics, often visible through small rock crystal windows or integrated into the design, would have given the cross an immense spiritual power, making it not just a symbol but a tangible link to the divine. The back of the cross might have been equally decorated, perhaps with engraved biblical scenes or inscriptions detailing its dedication. When Empress Gizela appeared at court, perhaps for a major religious festival or a state procession, the imperial cross would have been carried before her or displayed prominently beside her throne. Its immense size and dazzling splendor would have commanded immediate reverence. As it moved, the light would have danced across its hundreds of jewels, sending dazzling reflections throughout the church or hall. Its golden surfaces and myriad gems would have glittered with every slight movement, creating a halo of brilliance that visibly manifested the divine sanction and immense wealth of the Holy Roman Empire. The cross served a dual purpose. It was a devotional object used in religious ceremonies, but it was also a powerful statement of imperial power, a visual affirmation of the emperor and empress's role as God's representatives. On earth, the very act of possessing such a sacred and valuable object reinforced their legitimacy and authority. While no single piece is universally agreed upon, as the imperial cross of Empress Gizela, today the type of object is well documented within Ottonian imperial regalia, and stellar contenders from her area still exist in various church treasuries. Like many medieval imperial treasures, the exact form of such pieces could change over time. Jewels might be reset, gold might be melted down for new creations, or the cross might be broken up and its components dispersed during times of conflict or financial necessity. However, the historical records of the period in the surviving examples of Ottonian artistry leave no doubt about the staggering opulence and profound spiritual reliquaries owned by empresses like Gizela. These pieces were not merely jewels. They were portable declarations of sacred imperial power. Number 7. The Great Pearl and Sapphire Necklace of Eleanor of Aquitaine. Eleanor of Aquitaine, Queen Consort first of France and then of England in the 12th century, was a woman of legendary wealth, power, and influence. As the Duchess of Aquitaine, in her own right, she commanded vast territories and immense resources, and her courts in both France and England were renowned for their sophistication and lavish display. While no single, specifically named necklace of hers has survived intact from such a distant era, it is certain that a queen of her immense status and personal fortune would have possessed parures, or sets of jewels of unimaginable splendor. One can envision a great pearl and sapphire necklace as a prime example of the kind of magnificent adornment that would have graced her royal neck. Imagine a necklace of exceptional length and weight, designed to drape not just around the throat but to cascade down the décolletage, perhaps even to her waist or beyond, a veritable river of light and color. It would have been crafted from the finest, purest gold, each link meticulously forged and joined, creating a flexible yet incredibly substantial piece. The gold itself would have shimmered with a deep, warm luster, a testament to its purity and the skill of the master goldsmiths who created it. The links themselves might have been intricately decorated, perhaps with delicate filigree, tiny gold threads twisted into elegant patterns, or even small areas of enameled decoration, adding touches of vibrant color. The true magnificence of this great pearl and sapphire necklace would have been its breathtaking array of pearls and sapphires. Picture hundreds, perhaps even thousands of natural pearls, each one unique in its shape and creamy, iridescent luster. These would have been sourced from distant oyster beds in the Persian Gulf, the Indian Ocean, or perhaps even from freshwater mussels in European rivers. They would have varied slightly in size from small seed pearls, used for delicate embellishments, to larger, more prominent pearls, perhaps the size of small berries, forming the central elements of the design. They would have been meticulously drilled and strung, creating long, cascading ropes, or individually set into tiny gold bezels, forming clusters and patterns. Interspersed among these luminous pearls would have been a profusion of brilliant sapphires. These would have been chosen for their deep, velvety blue hues, ranging from the darkest indigo to a lighter, more vibrant azure. Sapphires were highly prized in the medieval period, believed to possess protective powers and to represent truth, wisdom, and the heavens. They would have been cabochon cut, meaning they were smoothly rounded and highly polished, allowing their natural color and internal light to shine through with a serene, captivating glow, rather than the sharp sparkle of later faceted gems. These sapphires would have been set in prominent positions, perhaps as focal points within clusters of pearls, or forming distinct sections of the necklace, creating a striking contrast between their rich blue and the soft luminescence of the pearls. The design of the necklace could have been symmetrical and geometric, characteristic of early medieval jewelry, or it might have incorporated delicate floral motifs reflecting the courtly aesthetics of the time. Small golden elements, perhaps tiny lions or fleur-de-lis, symbolizing her royal connections, might have been integrated into the design rendered in miniature, goldwork, or subtle enamel. When Eleanor of Aquitaine wore this immense necklace, perhaps during a grand court assembly, a royal wedding, or a major state event, resting against the rich silks or velvets of her gown, the sheer volume of pearls and sapphires would have caught and reflected every available light source, from flickering torchlight to the diffused glow of castle windows. The hundreds of pearls would have shimmered with a soft, ethereal glow, while the sapphires would have pulsed with intense blue fire. Every movement of her head or body would have sent ripples of light across the magnificent piece. This necklace was not merely an ornament, it was a visible manifestation of her power, her wealth, and her enduring legacy. As the mother of two kings, Richard I and John of England, Eleanor's life was inextricably linked with the highest levels of European power. Her jewels were part of her overall image as a formidable ruler and a woman of unparalleled influence. Like nearly all specific medieval jewels of such antiquity and value, it is highly probable that the great pearl and sapphire necklace of Eleanor of Aquitaine, if it existed as a single, identifiable piece, was eventually disassembled. Precious stones were often removed and reset into newer, more fashionable designs for subsequent generations of royalty. The gold might have been melted down for coinage during times of financial need or to create new objects. However, the historical records and chronicles of her time speak of her immense wealth and the lavishness of her court, allowing us to envision such a magnificent piece, a testament to the breathtaking opulence of one of history's most powerful medieval queens. Number 8. The Golden Girdle of Isabella of France. Isabella of France, known as the She-Wolf of France, Queen Consort of England to Edward II in the early 14th century, was a woman of formidable will, intelligence, and a penchant for lavish display. Her royal inventories and the accounts of her court reveal an immense personal fortune and a dazzling collection of jewels, among which the girdle stood as a statement piece of unparalleled opulence. More than just a belt, a royal girdle was a complex jeweled adornment, a visible testament to wealth and status, worn prominently around the waist or hips, transforming the wearer into a walking treasure chest. Imagine a girdle crafted from the finest, purest gold, its surface gleaming with a deep, rich luster. This was not a narrow band. It would have been a broad, substantial piece, perhaps several inches wide, designed to drape elegantly and flow with the wearer's movement. The gold work itself would have been a masterpiece of medieval artistry. It might have featured intricate open work where the metal was pierced and cut into delicate lace-like patterns, allowing the fabric beneath to show through, creating a stunning contrast. Alternatively, it could have been composed of a series of exquisitely crafted golden plaques, each one a miniature artwork, linked together with heavy gold chains or hinges. The true splendor of Isabella's golden girdle would have lain in its breathtaking array of precious stones. Picture it absolutely encrusted with gemstones, set so closely together that the underlying gold was almost entirely obscured by a shimmering mosaic of color and light. There would have been a profusion of deep red rubies, their fiery intensity symbolizing royal blood and passion. These rubies, perhaps from distant mines in Central Asia, or even recycled from ancient Roman pieces, would have pulsed with an inner fire catching every available light source. Alongside these would have been sapphires of the deepest, most serene blue, some large and prominent, their color evoking the heavens and divine favor. Emeralds, with their vibrant living green, would have added a verdant contrast, their presence signifying growth and prosperity. Binnels, often mistaken for rubies in medieval times, might have added further depths of red and pink. These gemstones would have been primarily cabochon, cut their smoothly rounded and highly polished surfaces, allowing their natural color and internal fire to glow with a captivating soft brilliance. And interspersed among all these magnificent colored stones would have been countless natural pearls, hundreds upon hundreds of them. These pearls, varying slightly in size and shape, with their soft, creamy iridescence, would have provided a luminous counterpoint to the vibrant sparkle of the harder gems. They would have been carefully drilled and strung or set into tiny gold bezels, creating intricate patterns across the girdle's expansive surface, perhaps outlining the golden plaques or forming delicate borders. Clasp of the girdle itself would have been a major jeweled element, a masterpiece in its own right, often featuring a large central gem surrounded by smaller stones. When Isabella of France wore this golden girdle, perhaps at a grand court banquet, a state procession, or a formal reception for foreign dignitaries, it would have been a profound statement. Resting against the rich silks or velvets of her gown, the sheer volume of gold and jewels would have caught and refracted every available light source, from flickering torchlight to the diffused glow of castle windows. Countless gems would have sparkled with dazzling brilliance, and the pearls would have shimmered with an ethereal glow, creating a breathtaking display of opulence that moved with her. The girdle was not just an ornament, it was a visible manifestation of her power, her wealth, and her status as Queen of England. Isabella's life was marked by her struggle against her husband's weak rule, her affair with Roger Mortimer, and her eventual role in the deposition of Edward II. Throughout these tumultuous events, her public image, adorned with such magnificent regalia, reinforced her formidable presence and influence. While a specific named golden girdle of Isabella of France, perfectly intact, does not exist today, royal inventories and historical accounts from the period frequently mention the existence of such immensely valuable and elaborate girdles in royal collections. Like many medieval royal jewels, items of such value were often disassembled over time. The precious stones, being the most enduring part, would have been carefully removed and reset into newer, more fashionable designs for subsequent generations of royalty, or sold to raise funds during times of war or political upheaval. The gold might have been melted down for coinage or to create new objects. Yet the concept of such a magnificent jewel, a golden girdle worthy of one of medieval England's most powerful and controversial queens, remains a vivid testament to the breathtaking opulence of royal courts in the 14th century. Number 9. The crown of Joan of Navarre. Joan of Navarre, Queen Consort of England and wife of King Henry IV, in the early 15th century, brought with her to the English court a rich dowry and a collection of personal jewels that reflected her high status. Among her most important possessions would have been her personal crown, distinct from the state crown of England, a piece of regalia that she would have worn on numerous occasions of royal ceremony and proven her position as queen, while its precise form is largely known through inventory descriptions rather than surviving visuals. It is clear that this crown was a masterpiece of late medieval jeweled artistry. A true testament. Imagine a crown crafted from the finest gleaming gold, its surface polished to a mirror-like finish that reflected light with a deep, resonant glow. This was a piece designed to impress, substantial in weight and intricate in its design. It would have featured a broad circlet forming the base, intricately worked with techniques like filigree, where fine gold threads were twisted into delicate lace-like patterns, or perhaps adorned with areas of exquisite enamel work. These enamel sections might have depicted heraldic devices such as the lilies of France, symbolizing her lineage, or the arms of Navarre rendered in vivid, permanent colors protected by a hard, glassy surface. Rising from this circlet would have been a series of elaborate fleurons or stylized leaves, perhaps alternating with crosses or other symbolic elements, creating a majestic upward sweep. These elements would not have been simple flat cutouts. They would have been sculpted, multi-layered forms, perhaps set with smaller gemstones or pearls within their intricate designs, adding to their dimensionality and sparkle. Connecting these vertical elements would have been delicate arches, arching gracefully to meet at the crown's apex, supporting a small golden orb surmounted by a cross, the ultimate symbol of Christian monarchy. The true spectacle of Joan's crown would have been its extraordinary array of precious stones set in profusion across its golden body. Picture it absolutely encrusted with gemstones, set so closely together that the underlying gold was almost entirely obscured by a shimmering mosaic of color and light. There would have been a significant number of deep red rubies, their fiery intensity symbolizing courage and royal blood, perhaps originating from distant mines in Central Asia or recycled from older royal collections. These rubies would have pulsed with an inner fire, catching every available light source. Alongside these would have been sapphires of the deepest, most serene blue, some large and prominent, their color evoking the heavens and divine favor. Emeralds, with their vibrant living green, would have added a verdant contrast, their presence signifying growth and prosperity. Amethysts, with their regal purple, and possibly even small uncut diamonds valued for their rarity and hardness, might also have been incorporated. These gemstones, typical of the late medieval period, would have been set in gold bezels, their smoothly rounded, allowing their natural color and internally fire to glow, or perhaps beginning to feature early rudimentary facets that would have caught more light. And interspersed among all these magnificent colored stones would have been countless natural pearls, hundreds upon hundreds of them. These pearls, varying slightly in size and shape, with their soft creamy iridescence, would have provided a luminous counterpoint to the vibrant sparkle of the harder gems. They would have been meticulously drilled and strung, forming delicate cascades or clusters, or individually set into tiny gold bezels, creating intricate patterns across the crown's expansive surface. When Joan of Navarre wore this personal crown, perhaps at a grand banquet, a royal wedding, or during formal appearances in the presence of foreign ambassadors, the sheer weight of the gold and the multitude of jewels would have been considerable. It would have pressed down upon her head, a tangible manifestation of her immense dignity and the immense wealth of the English crown. As she moved, the light from torches or candles or the bright sun through a castle window would have caught its myriad jewels, sending dazzling reflections across the hall. The sight of her crowned in such splendor would have been a powerful affirmation of her queenly status and the glory of the English kingdom. Joan of Navarre's life in England was not without its challenges, including accusations of witchcraft during the reign of her stepson, King Henry V, yet through it all her royal status and the accompanying splendor of her jewels remained a constant. Her crown was not just an ornament. It was a potent symbol conveying legitimacy and reinforcing the hierarchy of medieval society. Like most medieval royal crowns, it is highly probable that the specific personal crown of Joan of Navarre no longer exists in its original form. Royal jewels were often seen as liquid assets capable of being pawned, melted down for coinage during times of war or financial need, or dismantled to reuse their precious components. The gold might have been melted down and refashioned, and the valuable gemstones removed and reset into newer, more fashionable pieces. For succeeding generations of English royalty, however, the royal inventories of the period, which described such magnificent pieces, allow us to envision the breathtaking opulence of this royal crown, a powerful testament to the artistry and wealth of medieval queens. Number 10. The crown of Empress Theophanu. Empress Theophanu, a Byzantine princess who became the Holy Roman Empress and wife of Otto II in the late 10th century, brought with her to the Western Empire an unparalleled sense of Eastern opulence and artistic sophistication. Her personal jewels and the imperial regalia associated with her were renowned for their Byzantine influences, treating a different yet equally dazzling style of medieval craftsmanship. Crown of Empress Theophanu, while not a single identified surviving object known by that name today, refers to the type of magnificent imperial crown she would have worn, steeped in the rich traditions of both Byzantium and the Ottonian Empire. A true symbol of her unique dual heritage and immense power. Imagine a crown unlike typical Western European forms of the era. It would likely have been a multi-segmented masterpiece, perhaps composed of several arched or hinged plaques of pure radiant gold richly adorned. This gold, pounded and shaped by master artisans, would have gleamed with a profound, almost spiritual luster. The Byzantine influence would have been evident in the extensive use of cloisonné enamel, a technique where thin gold wires were meticulously soldered onto a gold base, creating tiny compartments that were then, before being fired in a kiln. The result was a series of miniature jewel-toned paintings, protected by a hard, glassy surface, depicting Christ, the Virgin Mary, archangels, and various saints, their figures rendered in exquisite detail. Against backgrounds of deep blue and emerald green, often bordered by delicate gold filigree, the entire structure of the crown would have been an absolute riot of gemstones set in profusion, each one catching the light and refracting it in a dazzling spectrum of color. Picture large cabochon, cut sapphires, their deep blue hues mirroring the heavens, some of them of impressive size, perhaps acquired through trade routes stretching across the Byzantine Empire. And beyond, rubies, often dark and fiery, would have been set in profusion, their intense crimson speaking of royal blood and passion. Emeralds, with their vibrant living green, would have added a verdant contrast. Their internal landscapes, a testament to their natural origins. Amethysts with their regal purple might also have been prominent. These stones, with their smooth, polished surfaces, would have radiated a soft internal glow, and interspersed among these vibrant gemstones, adding a soft, luminous quality, would have been countless natural pearls, hundreds upon hundreds of them. These pearls, each one unique in shape and creamy iridescence, would have been carefully selected and secured, perhaps strung on gold wire or set into tiny gold bezels, creating intricate patterns. Across the crown's expasti, the crown's design might have also incorporated hanging pendants known as pendilia, a characteristic feature of Byzantine imperial crowns. These would have been delicate chains or strands of pearls and small gemstones, suspended from the circlet framing the empress's face and glittering with every slight movement. This would have added an extra dimension of dynamic sparkle and elegance when Empress Theophanu appeared in court or during her coronation in Rome in 972, or at various imperial assemblies. This magnificent crown would have been a central element of her imperialis. The immense weight of the gold and the multitude of jewels would have been considerable, a tangible burden of her immense responsibility. As she moved, the light would have danced across the enamel plaques and the hundreds of gemstones, creating a halo of brilliance around her. The sacred figures in enamel would have seemed to gaze out, lending a divine sanction to her presence. Each sapphire and ruby would have pulsed with light. Each pearl would have glowed softly, creating an overwhelming display of sacred power and earthly wealth. Theophanu's position as a Byzantine princess, marrying into the Western imperial line, was highly significant. Her jewels and her entire courtly presentation were a fusion of Eastern and Western traditions, reflecting her unique status and the expansive reach of the Holy Roman Empire. Her crown was not just an ornament. It was a potent political and religious statement, conveying legitimacy and reinforcing the hierarchy of medieval society. While no single crown of Empress Theophanu survives as an identifiable, unaltered piece today, the magnificent imperial crown of the Holy Roman Empire, the so-called Reichskrone, is a prime example of Attonian artistry, and a piece she would have known and influenced. Like many imperial regalia of the period, crowns were often remodeled, their components reused, or they were lost to history during periods of conflict. However, historical chronicles, art historical analysis of Byzantine and Ottonian styles, and surviving fragments or analogous pieces leave no doubt about the staggering opulence and profound spiritual significance of the imperial crowns worn by empresses like Theophano. These pieces were not merely jewels, they were portable declarations of sacred imperial power, embodying the very essence of medieval majesty. Number 11. The Crown of St. Wenceslas of Anna of Schweidnitz. Crown of St. Wenceslas stands as one of the most revered and historically significant pieces of regalia in Central Europe. And for queens like Anna of Schweidnitz, wife of Emperor Charles IV, in the mid-14th century, it was a tangible link to a sacred past and a symbol of their profound imperial authority. This was not merely a secular headpiece. It was consecrated with a relic of St. Wenceslas himself, making it a sacred object worn by rulers, including their consorts, during their coronations and other monumental state occasions, imbued with both earthly power and divine blessing. Picture a crown fashioned from the purest, highest carat gold, a gold that held a deep, resonant gleam, showing the meticulous craftsmanship of its creators. Design is unlike the simple circlets of earlier centuries. It is a complex, almost architectural masterpiece. 4 large lily-shaped forms, known as fleurons, rise majestically from the circlet base. These are not merely decorative elements. They are each exquisitely detailed, their petals rendered in intricate goldwork, each one a miniature sculpture in itself. Between these 4 grand fleurons, smaller trefoil-shaped elements rise, creating a rhythm of ascending and descending points around the crown's circumference, giving it a dynamic, regal profile. Connecting these vertical elements are 2 intersecting arches, crossing at the very top of the crown to support a glorious golden orb, surmounted by a slender cross. This cross is not plain. It is adorned with a large, faceted sapphire, a beacon of deep blue that would have shimmered even in dim light. The entire structure of the crown, from its base to the apex of the cross, is an absolute riot of gemstones, each one carefully selected for its size, color, and brilliance, creating an effect of unparalleled splendor. Crown of St. Wenceslas is famously encrusted with 96 precious stones and 20 pearls. Imagine the sheer concentration of wealth and beauty. There are 19 rubies, each one a pool of rich, fiery crimson, many of them large and prominently placed to command attention. Then there are 30 emeralds, their vibrant green contrasting magnificently with the gold and the red. Some of them of impressive size, their internal landscapes, a testament to their natural origins. Spinels, often mistaken for rubies in medieval times, add further depths of red and pink, their own unique fire contributing to the crown's overall dazzle. But perhaps the most striking stones are the 20 sapphires, ranging in color from deep violet blue to a clearer sky blue. One of them set in the central cross, an astonishing 300 carats, a truly immense gem for the medieval period. These sapphires, with their intense color and internal light, would have drawn the eyes, signifying wisdom, royalty, and divine favor. Interspersed among these vibrant gemstones are 20 pearls, each one a luminous sphere of milky white or creamy ivory, reflecting the light in soft, diffused ways, providing a gentle counterpoint to the sharp brilliance of the faceted stones. These pearls would have been carefully secured, perhaps strung on gold wire or set into tiny gold bezels, creating intricate patterns across the collar's expansive surface. The entire composition of gold, rubies, emeralds, sapphires, and pearls creates a breathtaking mosaic of color and light. For Anna of Schweidnitz, wearing this crown during her coronation as Queen of Bohemia in 1353, and later as Holy Roman Empress, was not just a formality. The immense weight of the crown, crafted from over 2 kilograms of pure gold, would have pressed down upon her head, a tangible reminder of the immense responsibilities she was undertaking. As she processed through the hallowed halls of Prague Castle, or stood before the gathered nobles and clergy, the crown of St. Wenceslas would have literally glittered with every slight movement, its myriad stones reflecting the light. Each jewel was not just a decoration, it was a testament to the wealth and power of the Bohemian Kingdom and the Holy Roman Empire, a visual affirmation of her divinely sanctioned right to rule. Crown's history is intertwined with the very essence of Bohemian royalty. Commissioned by Charles IV in 1346 for his own coronation, he then dedicated it to St. Wenceslas, making it a permanent part of the Bohemian crown jewels, never to be sold or pawned. It was kept in a treasury at St. Vitus Cathedral in Prague, only brought out for the coronations of Bohemian kings and queens, including Charles's own wives. Its sacred nature was emphasized by the inclusion of a thorn, a relic provided by Charles IV from his vast collection, which was placed within the cross at the crown's apex. Crown of St. Wenceslas still exists today, preserved within the crown chamber of St. Vitus Cathedral in Prague. It stands as a powerful testament to the artistry of medieval goldsmiths and jewelers, and to the enduring legacy of the queens who wore its sacred weight. Its splendor, documented in historical inventories and eyewitness accounts, continues to inspire awe, a direct link to the dazzling courts of medieval Europe and the queens whose lives it illuminated. Number 12. The Great Collar of Anne of Bohemia. Anne of Bohemia, Queen Consort of England during the late 14th century, brought with her to the English court a new wave of fashion and a profound sense of continental European splendor. Among her astonishing collection of personal adornments, chroniclers and surviving inventories hinted at the existence of a truly magnificent piece known simply as her Great Collar. This was not merely a necklace, it was a cascading display of royal might and immeasurable wealth, worn closely around the neckline, extending down the chest in a breathtaking cascade of light and color. Imagine a piece crafted from solid burnished gold, each link meticulously shaped and joined, creating a flexible yet substantial band designed to sit perfectly upon the queen's delicate collarbones. This was no thin chain. It was a broad, weighty river of precious metal, probably several inches wide, intricately worked, with delicate filigree and granulation, technique perfected by goldsmiths over centuries. The surface of the gold itself would have shimmered with a deep, rich luster, a testament to the purity of the metal and the skill of the artisans who wrought it. But the gold was merely the canvas for an explosion of precious stones. The Great Collar of Anne of Bohemia was said to be absolutely saturated with jewels. Hundreds, perhaps even thousands of meticulously selected gemstones, each one catching the light and refracting it in a dazzling spectrum of color. There would have been deep velvety red rubies, often hailing from distant mines in places like Ceylon or Burma, their intense colors speaking of passion and power. Alongside these fiery stones, sapphires of the deepest azure, reminiscent of the twilight sky, would have been set, perhaps sourced from Kashmir or even closer European deposits. These were not the cut and polished gems of later eras. They were likely cabochon cut, meaning they were smoothly rounded and highly polished, allowing their natural color and internal fire to shine through with an almost mystical glow. Emeralds, with their vibrant, living green, possibly brought from distant Colombian mines, or perhaps from Roman-era sources, would have added a verdant contrast. Their presence signifying growth and renewal, and interspersed among these magnificent colored stones would have been pearls, hundreds upon hundreds of them. These were not the perfectly spherical, cultured pearls of modern times. These were natural pearls likely harvested from oyster beds in the Persian Gulf, or even from Scottish rivers, each one unique in shape and size, their creamy iridescent surfaces adding a soft, luminous quality to the overwhelming brilliance of the piece. They would have been carefully drilled and strung, or perhaps set into tiny gold bezels, creating intricate patterns across the collar's expansive surface. The design of this great collar likely incorporated elements symbolic of the royal houses. It represented the Lion of Bohemia, the three crowns of England, perhaps even the lilies of France. These symbols would have been rendered in raised goldwork, sometimes enameled with vibrant colors, deep blues, crimson reds, and stark whites, using the champleve or cloisonné techniques, where powdered glass was fired into recessed areas of the metal, creating areas of vivid, permanent color that would not fade. The weight of such a piece would have been considerable, a tangible representation of the burden and glory of queenship. It would have pressed against the queen's shoulders and neck, a constant heavy reminder of her station. When Anne of Bohemia appeared in court, or during state processions, or at grand banquets, this great collar would have been a focal point of her attire. It was worn over the finest silks and velvets, often embroidered with gold thread and pearls themselves, but the collar would have dominated the ensemble. As she moved, the hundreds of jewels would have caught the flickering candlelight or the diffused light from stained glass windows, sending dazzling reflections across the hall. Courtiers and foreign dignitaries, accustomed to lavish displays, would have still been struck by the sheer magnitude of its opulence. It was a statement of power, a testament to the wealth of the English crown and the Bohemian dowry that had helped secure her marriage to King Richard II. Historical records, though sparse on exact blueprints for such specific pieces, frequently mention the staggering value of medieval royal jewelry. Anne's dowry was significant, and she was known for her personal taste and for importing fashionable items, including headwear and jewelry, from her native Bohemia. While the exact fate of Anne's great collar is not explicitly documented today, it is highly probable that, like many pieces of medieval royal regalia, it was eventually broken down. Jewels were often removed from their settings during periods of financial strain, political upheaval, or simply to be reset into more contemporary styles. The gold might have been melted down for coinage or to fashion new pieces, but the memory of such a magnificent object, a true great collar, of immense scale and dazzling beauty, persists through the descriptions of chroniclers who witnessed the splendor of Anne of Bohemia's court. It remains a powerful symbol of the heights of medieval jeweled artistry and the unimaginable wealth of queens who wore such fortunes upon their very bodies.